whether or not Agnipath, that's the system of recruitment in the armed forces, is being politicized by the Congress party. I'm now joined by General Ved Prakash Malik, former army chief. I'll be joined in a little while from now also by Nija Chaudhary, Wing Commander Anuma Acharya of the Congress, and R.S. Pathania of the BJP. But first, exclusively to General Malik, who knows a thing or two about being soldiers. Do you believe it's unfortunate, General Malik, that the Agnipath scheme, the Indian Army, the Indian Armed Forces have been brought into this election campaign?
Good evening and Jai Hind, Vishnu.
Jai Hind, sir.
It's always nice to be on your program. As far as the challenging part is concerned, frankly, I find nothing wrong with that. The opposition challenging such an important policy. It is an important policy which deals with the manpower of the armed forces. I think they have a full right. But having said that, I must also mention here two major issues. Firstly, I find it very strange that when this scheme was announced a couple of years ago, at that time, there was no discussion at all in the parliament. And even in the newspaper, there were hardly any comments. And this suddenly has now become, during election, has become a major issue, and people are talking of politicization, etc., etc. So that is one strange part, that important policy not being discussed in the parliament or outside, and it has now become a major issue for elections. The second, I find that there are a number of leaders, political leaders, who do not understand this policy. It seems that they haven't read it, and they are passing some ill-informed and divisive comments also. Recently, that has been made in the recent past. For example, now to say that 10% privileged people will become officers and 90% of underprivileged people will continue to remain as soldiers who will be thrown out after some time. I think this is a very wrong, that's not the concept at all. It's a statement without understanding, without reading the whole scheme per se. And I think also it is harmful when you start saying that only the officers will be from the upper class and the soldiers will be from the underprivileged class, whatever be their caste, creed, etc., etc. The other thing is that to say that all the benefits will go to the privileged class and the underprivileged class will be left out, I think that is also wrong. I must also point out here that this is not a totally strange or new scheme. When I joined the army at that time, the Jawans had 7 years color service. And those who were doing well, they continued to rise, they continued to get the senior ranks, came up to Subedar Major. But those who did not want or they were not found fit, they left after 7 years. That was, I'm talking of 50s and 60s. So that time also there was some kind of a division, if you want to call it. But then the army hierarchy is such and the army composition is such that it doesn't make any difference at all. Those who wish to go, they go. And as I said, it's nothing new. Now, there are, to say that these are two different classes, those who are Agniveers and those who are not, and there will be a distinction between the two, I don't accept that, because what I have seen in the units also, they are all being treated alike. Now, having said that, I also feel that there are certain reservations that we all have. Even I have some certain reservations. But those are now being sorted out. The army itself is carrying out a study, and they will be noting all the reservations that we have and what are the pluses and the minuses of the scheme. And even the defense minister, I think he has made a statement that if there are certain requirements, we will modify the scheme when it is required. I must also, Vishnu, tell you that I was called by the policy research establishment, which analyzes the issues for the parliament, PRS, which is there. They had called me once to speak to the parliamentarians and talk to them about the Agniveer and Agnipath scheme. And there were only about 25 or 26 people who came in that. where I had been specially called by the PRS team to brief them on this scheme. And I did find even at that time that they had reservations, they were not adequately informed, but rest of the political leaders who sit in the parliament, I think they remained ignorant about it for all the time till the elections came.
Yep. All right, General Malik, good to hear from you. Thanks very much, sir, for sharing, that expert perspective on, on the politics around this and whether that is at all necessary. Let me go across to R.S. Pathania of the BJP. Mr. Pathania, do you believe that a lot of this has to do with the fact that the opposition may not necessarily understand the actual efficacy of the scheme one way or the other, that the reason they want to get rid of it has nothing to do with whether it's actually working on the ground. And therefore, if there is criticism of Agnipath, it should be based on how it's functioning, not because of larger political statements.
Absolutely, Vishnu. You have struck the right nail on the head. So I am of the view that some issues, they are too sensitive to play petty politics over, and Agnipath is one amongst all that. The Election Commission of India has red flags. It has sounded a red herring. But the Congress, and very senior leader of Congress, Mr. P Chidambaram, he has doubted, he has casted aspersions. I'll go a step further, not only on the scheme, but the ruling of the Election Commission of India also. This is really bizarre and aghast. This is I think, the Congress way of going ahead with the issues and certain points which certainly concern the national security also. So my humble submission to each and everybody on board, and particularly to the Congress party also, that please be constructive, please be contributive. Don't be on the destructive lane. Don't be an obstructionist. And I will just remind and re-quote one golden quote of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru ji to the grand old party called as Congress, who said that government in power is like a bicycle moving downswing, moving on a downslope. And oppositions, they act like a humble and a decent brake.
Okay.
But if this brake gets out of control, and then cycle also virtually loses its rhythm and balance also. So I think this tightrope they need to work on. They need to respect the Lakshmana Rekha, and they need to accept their limitations.
Okay, Mr. Pathania, I get your point. I just want to go across to Wing Commander Anuma Acharya as well. Wing Commander, if there were problems and concerns about the scheme when it was introduced, but since then we are seeing a very large number of young boys and girls, because they're very young when they join, actually signing up. And the numbers, are all very strong. Therefore, is it necessarily an unpopular scheme? Do you need to get rid of it at all?
Vishnu, first of all, I do object to your very judgmental statement that Congress is politicizing it. With due respect
I'm asking. I'm asking. That's the question on my program. It's not my statement. It's not necessarily what I feel. It's a statement for this program. Yeah, so just to clarify.
Let me continue with due regards and respect to General Malik. The issue was always discussed on every platform. But there was a sequence of events, if you remember. The aspirants were protesting. At that time, the government threatened them that their biological fingerprints, their biological prints are being taken and they will not get any government job. They have threatened their parents also. So Congress realized at that time that if it goes against those aspirants, and then we saw these aspirants walking, marching from Maharashtra to Delhi, a lot of places. They were falling sick in between. And then the entire, Agnipath, Agniveers, the aspirants who were like from 2019 to 2022, who had already cleared, they were protesting. And these people who are the present aspirants, they have also joined. Now, do you know this? That earlier 35 lakhs people used to apply for Indian Armed Forces. Now there are only 10 lakh people who are applying for it. So this is the very clear-cut indication that this scheme is a failure. And then I will talk about General M.M. Narwane, who wrote this book, 4 Stars of Destiny, जिसके ऊपर अभी ban लगा दिया है. And this government thinks कि they have just put the ban on this and people would not know the reality. I have just met a serving air marshal who very clearly told me, we don't know what to do with these Agniveers. And then Election Commission is red flagging Congress. Election Commission never red flagged in the Prime Minister when he talked about, he said that give vote to me on the name of Pulwama martyrs, give vote to me on the name of surgical strike. This was the extreme politicization of the armed forces. That time Election Commission did not do any action. And now Election Commission is talking about this. I have also to tell you that this was a pure political scheme. There was no pilot project of the scheme. They have never launched a pilot project. They have never discussed. As General Narwane said, that it was from a bolt from the blue for the Indian Air Force and Indian Navy. So with all of this, I make my point that only Bharatiya Janata Party has always politicized this. And I think the BJP spokesperson was talking something about that we are politicizing this. I must tell you that 99% of serving and retired veterans, everyone, they are against this scheme. If you talk about the generals who more or less...
All right, let me get a response from Mr. Pathania. Wing Commander, you made your point. Mr. Pathania, would you like to... The point that she makes is, A, she's got data to suggest that the number of people actually being recruited is much lower. And she says that it's not been a scheme that's been thought through. One of many points that were mentioned. How would you respond?
Vishnu, a greater number of youth and greater number of people getting access to and getting know-how of the training of the armored weapons also. Today in Jammu and Kashmir, we have village defense guards also. So these village defense guards get a crash course for 30 days and virtually then they fight with these people. So you can criticize it. You can pull against it with fullest weight. But please, I said, there's a Lakshman Rekha also. It's not a case of Congress versus Bharatiya Janata Party. This is a scheme which concerns the issues of national security. This is a scheme which gives greater number of employment to a greater number of people. This is a scheme which gives arms training to a greater number of people. This is a scheme which opens employment avenues for a greater number of people. This is a scheme which has been much talked of by the army men, by the professionals and by the technocrats on the veteran issue. So once you come to power, which is not going to at all happen in near future, you come to power, you can do it. You can do it whatever you want to. But you need to respect the Lakshman Rekha. This is my humble suggestion. You need not cross the Rubicon line. And Congress comes to know, I said, this is petty politics. This is politics. This is petty politics just for the sake of votes. This is, you questioned, I'll even mention up, you questioned the veracity of Pulwama attack. You questioned Balakot also. You questioned the martyrship of the Shopian that Bharatiya Janata Party Sarpanch also. You are an alliance partner, Farooq Abdullah demands an international probe in the killing of Bharatiya Janata Party Sarpanch also. So be constructive. Let not the frustration of losing very, very badly in 2024 take better of you.
All right, I know Anuma wants to come in, but I want to go across to Nirja first. Nirja, it's not the first time, obviously, where national security has come into the election fore. Last time around, it was big with Pulwama and Balakot. This time around, it appears that this has become a real issue. Do you see this as a continuation of national security being a theme which comes in every now and again during elections?
I think, Vishnu, we are a strong and a resilient enough country to be able to take criticism even at election time. I think even of the armed forces, a policy, this is a policy decision, Agniveer. And if the opposition wants to criticize it and election time is the time to do it, I'm a bit baffled by this because when you use the word politicize, politics is part of democratic functioning. Politicize should not be a dirty word at all. As long as you're not denigrating the armed forces and as long as you're being factually correct and you're not putting off untruths. I think whether the policy is good, it is true. I mean, as I've traveled around, a lot of people I find have questioned the scheme of Agniveer, which is fine. The government side and the ruling party's side can defend it. They think it's a good scheme. That's why they brought it. And to have a debate at this time is a very according to me, a very legitimate exercise. So I find it very, if you, by this logic, you won't be able to criticize anything or most things because it will be seen as politicizing. I think, as I say, politics is very much an integral part, or should be an integral part of our democratic functioning, and we should not be afraid of, as I say, we are a very robust and proud democracy.
Right.
This kind of criticism we can take.
Wing Commander Acharya, quite besides the points that you have made, the Election Commission has actually said that there shouldn't be divisive statements on the socio-economic composition of defence forces. Isn't that a fair statement?
I don't know why Election Commission of India keeps changing the stance. The ruling dispensation shirks away from the from answering to people of this country. And if this scheme
but
was
Rahul Gandhi had made some
BJP,
remarks, Wing Commander, which was seen to be very, which seemed to be fairly rude when he said that, there are soldiers, there are officers, and then there are a large number of these Agniveers who, and he used a certain word, and, there was a certain sense that he was categorizing them socio-economically, and perhaps that could have been avoided. That's what the Election Commission seems to have reacted to. Could that remark not have been avoided?
Election Commission should have reacted to Prime Minister seeking votes on the name of martyrs. The Election Commission doesn't keep sleeping when Prime Minister Modi makes certain statements. And why BJP doesn't seek votes on the name of this scheme if it was so good? Why they don't talk about that we have brought Agnipath scheme, please vote for us. They know, and I know it is their Achilles heel, because this scheme has been launched without discussing with...
No, all that's fine. You mentioned that. But Wing Commander, when Rahul Gandhi says, and I quote, Prime Minister Modi is turning Indian soldiers into laborers, right? He's not exactly talking about the merits of this scheme, which you are, right? For right or for wrong, you are. But why do that and get into a divisive situation during election time? A, the armed forces are a massive political constituency. They're watching these elections very, very closely. Does a remark like that not serve to potentially demoralize? Young people, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, some of them may not even be allowed to vote this time. Is that what they want to hear? That we are being turned into laborers? Is that factually correct?
I want you to remember what Kailash Vijayvargiya said when this scheme was launched. He said we can employ them as security guards in front of BJP office. Is it Rahul Gandhi who has said this, or it is the BJP people have been talking about it? You have to remember it very, very clearly what Mr. Kailash Vijayvargiya said at that time. So
but what about the Chief of Defence Staff, Wing Commander, who just recently, I think it was day before yesterday, said that this scheme is something that's essential and important. You quoted General Naravane. I'm quoting the Chief of Defence Staff now. Are we going to question his integrity for backing this?
Unfortunately, Bharatiya Janata Party has ruined our structure in the armed forces. The seniority system has been dispensed with now. So any person who is at the level of Chief of the Air Staff or Army Staff or Naval Staff, they have to first look at how they should not be sacked unceremoniously. So they all are afraid.
So,
but
Wing Commander, most respectfully disagree with that statement. Most respectfully, I think we cannot cast an aspersion on the armed forces chiefs and say that they have to toe the line or they're going to be sacked. That's what you just said.
Because General Naravane, when he came out, then only he wrote this book, 4 Stars of Destiny, and which has been banned by Indian government.
Because there were parts of that book which the government, including parts on the entire situation along the line of actual control, the government was uncomfortable about coming to the public for. Now, that may be entirely wrong, and that's a separate debate. But we are talking about Agniveers and the Agnipath scheme. And yes, he may have had concerns about it, but to say that the government has banned the book was not banned because of Agnipath. It may have been banned because of other things. As I understand it, it was because of the LAC situation.
No, it was not. Please. That Mr. General Naravane has clearly stated that we did not want Agnipath scheme. We were working on a tour of duty.
But that's not what the book was banned for.
20,000 rupees as perks, which was undesirable. We somehow managed to get up to 30,000 rupees. This is all he has spoken about. You can't talk about LSC situation. What government is doing to protect that? So
that's
many
a separate
times we
issue.
have seen
I'm only
intelligence
making the
failures.
restricted point, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the book was stopped from releasing not because of Agnipath and the remarks there, but because of the situation on the LAC. Whereas you're saying that the book was stopped potentially because of comments made on Agnipath.
Vishnu, you're asking me this question?
Yes, Wing Commander.
See, the thing is, there is some unrest at LAC. Everyone knows what measures government has taken to stop it. The intelligence failures has been.
Wing Commander, we are talking about Agnipath. We are not talking about the LAC.
I'm talking about everything. It is not because of that.
Okay.
I don't think that General Narwane has written something which brings out government secured things and security related aspects. He is learned enough. He knows what is to be written, what is not to be written in open public domain.
Mr. Patania, go ahead. Last remark before I start wrapping this up.
Last one, with due respect and all responsibility and all respect towards this kind of the Congress spokesperson also, madam, this is a pimple over an ulcer. If we simply call it, the way Rahul Gandhi has gone hammer and tongue, the way Congress leadership has gone hammer and tongue, this amounts to defaming and denigrating the very institution of the army. The way Mr. P Chidambaram has virtually tried to overlook the rap on the knuckles, and the way, with due respect, you have also defended it. This is just a pimple over an ulcer. You should be apologetic. You should issue a general apology to all the army people, to the institution of army, to the Agnipath also, that we are sorry, we were caught on the wrong foot. We tend to be more constructive.
We will continue to talk about Agnipath scheme every time.
But not the way, the tenor and the tone in which you are talking, madam. Tone and tenor is absolutely irreprehensible. This is irreprehensible.
Remember this very clearly. Every soldier who is worked his salt or her salt.
No, but Mr. Commander, I don't think anybody is objecting to a debate on the merits of Agnipath.
Yes, nobody objects.
And, if anybody says, and I quote, PM Modi is turning Indian soldiers into laborers, or Agniveers are contractual laborers. Is that as somebody who's been in uniform yourself, ma'am, as somebody who's been in uniform yourself, would you like that characterization of the Indian soldier? That you are contractual laborer. That is what the EC is talking about. That is the politics in this. And that is unfortunate. By all means, talk about Agnipath.
They are as good as contractual laborers.
Why shouldn't you issue a general and an unqualified apology, madam?
Wing Commander, a soldier deployed at 90,000 feet, irrespective of the merits of his training.
You have been caught on the wrong foot.
Wing Commander, most respectfully, an Indian soldier, an Agniveer, who is posted at 19,000 feet, right, defending our frontier, would not like to be called a contractual labor or having been converted into a laborer by the Indian, by anyone. That's unfortunate. By all means, criticize Agnipath. And you made some important points. The army is also looking at many of these points. But why, make Indian soldiers or sort of label them in a particular way is the point.
Yeah, please ask Prime Minister why.
All right, we're going to leave it over there. But I welcome a continuation of this. Absolutely, we need to talk about national security, and I always do. Thank you all very much for being with us on this discussion.